Hello there, welcome to the Football Block. My name is Brandon. Today we are back with another episode of the Weekend Roundup, another episode of News Bits. It's been a while. Of course, there was international break, and then there was the Easter break, so I was busy with, holiday celebrations and stuff, and then last week I got a little caught up doing stuff for the Champions League. So it has been a while, but now I am back. We got a bunch of stuff to talk about. We did miss some pretty big headlines. Of course, we had the Copa del Rey, we had the Old Firm Derby in Scotland, a bunch of other stuff that unfortunately we missed, but we are back, and of course, there's always stuff to talk about. And as usual, we're going to start off in the Premier League in England here, and for this match week, we had some pretty shocking games, some interesting upsets, if I'm being honest. The first game that we're going to talk about is Newcastle United going up against Tottenham, hosting Tottenham in their home stadium. And this was a game that was very strange in that Tottenham got torn to shreds by Newcastle. And it is interesting. Tottenham had a very great start to the season, and Newcastle had a wonderful season last year, and I think they started the season okay. Now, injury crisis, and then also just the burden of having so many competitions to play in and heightened expectations naturally saw Newcastle fall off a little bit, but they still have quality in this team, obviously, as you can see here in this match. And Tottenham, on the other hand, while they have been playing some great football in portions of the season, there still are some very visible flaws, even though Postecoglou, in my opinion, has done a pretty good job overall. But as for this match in particular, Tottenham just got torn to shreds on the break. In transition, Newcastle was just so much more efficient than Tottenham, and then there was also some pretty comical defensive errors from the Spurs defenders. That's not so much on Postecoglou or his defensive setup. That is more so on the players individually. I think overall this defeat, blame should be shared around, of course, but I think more of the blame should be on the individual defenders here. I think they just had a real stinker of a match here. Great win for Newcastle, vital 3 points for them, and a very, very embarrassing loss for Tottenham. Moving on to another massive victory, though, we have Man City going up against Luton Town, and they crushed them. They absolutely smashed Luton Town 5-1. They scored a goal in the second minute, an own goal from Luton's Haishioka, I believe I'm pronouncing that right. We also saw a bunch of goals. Guardiola scored again after his banger against Real Madrid at the midweek in the Champions League. Doku scored, and Haaland scored again. He has not been having the best of times. I guess you can say not the best of times compared to his massive expectations from last season. But he was able to score here. It was a penalty, albeit, but still good for him in terms of his confidence. And Man City looked to be, watering at the lips, looking ahead to the second leg of the Champions League quarterfinals against Real Madrid. And with this win, they are now top of the Premier League, which we will get onto in a bit when we look at the other matches as well as the table. Moving on to the other side of Manchester, we had Bournemouth going up against Manchester United, and this match was really interesting. It was surprisingly back and forth. Bournemouth, despite starting off the season a little shaky, in my opinion, have been having a wonderful second half of the season. They have a potential to even qualify for Europe. They're playing with a massive amount of confidence, and Man United, on the other hand, are having an abysmal season, in my opinion. Some highs, but a lot of lows. I don't think it's working out for Erik ten Hag, and I think this match is a prime example of that. Defensively, Manchester United was absolutely terrible. Solanke scored a really nice goal in the 16th minute for Bournemouth, but still, there's no way that he should have been allowed that much space. There's no way he should have been able to wiggle out and create that much space for himself. And then Kluivert scored in the 36th minute to grab the lead again after Bruno Fernandes equalized for United. And this goal, still, how was Kluivert able to get past that many United defenders? How was he able to get the shot off? Onana actually had a really good game. He stopped it from getting 3-1 in favor of Bournemouth with a wonderful save. And then Bruno Fernandes saved the game for United, essentially. He had a really nice volley that cannoned off the crossbar, and then he eventually scored the penalty to tie it 2-2. Although United almost got a penalty, against their favor. They almost conceded a penalty, but luckily VAR was able to make the right decision, and they judged that the foul was outside of the box, which it was if you look at it on the replay. So there are some bright spots for United. I think going forward, some of their players are actually having some great season. Like I think Mainu as well as Garnacho, and then of course Bruno. But defensively, it's all over the place, and we've seen this time and time again from Man United. Of course, serious questions to be asked about their manager, Erik ten Hag. Moving on to another upset, we had Liverpool going up against Crystal Palace. Liverpool is trying to bounce back after their utterly embarrassing 3-0 loss at home, at Anfield, mind you, to Atalanta in the Europa League at the midweek, where they got completely played off the park. Great performance from Atalanta, but equally absolutely atrocious performance from Liverpool, possibly the worst performance that I've ever seen from Jurgen Klopp's side, or at least Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool side. And this match, they followed it up with another very bad performance. They lost 1-0 to Crystal Palace, and while Liverpool fans will say that they had some chances to tie it up, which is true, Jones at the end of the match had a one-on-one that he really should have scored. You also have to say that Crystal Palace had a bunch of other chances themselves that they should have scored to put this game out of reach for Liverpool. Great win for Crystal Palace, but like I said, abysmal performance from Liverpool. It looks like the team is just tired now. It looks like they burned out. They've reached just a certain level of fatigue that they're not going to be able to recover from. We're seeing this in the Premier League. Obviously, I just mentioned in the Europa League. So, unfortunately for Klopp's final season at Liverpool, it looks to be ending on a sour note. Now, I'm not a Liverpool fan, but I do hope that they are able to turn this around so Klopp can finish the season on somewhat of a high, even if they don't come away with a trophy, which it looks to be in serious jeopardy now. On to the final two games we're going to talk about in the Premier League. We had another upset here. We had Arsenal going up against Aston Villa, and this game was crazy. This game could have solidified Arsenal as the front runner for the Premier League title, as we'll get onto in a moment when we look at the table, but they fell short of expectations. They essentially bottled it. We're seeing this again after witnessing what happened last year from Mikel Arteta's Arsenal side, who are in a similar position where they could have, maintained their commanding lead at the top of the Premier League table, but they ended up bottling it at the end. That's what we're seeing here. I think also, similar to Liverpool, it looks like this Arsenal team is, just drawing some fatigue from such an arduous season, especially with Arsenal's Champions League campaign. This game is sandwiched in between two of the legs of the quarterfinals against Bayern Munich. The last fixture that they had, the first leg, wasn't the best performance from Arsenal. I think they got a little scared by, the big European lights they have. This team does not have a lot of European experience. And I think going into this match, the morale probably was very low, which heavily affected their performance. Going forward, Arsenal still created a decent amount of chances. They had 8 shots, but if you look at how clinical they were, it was not like how they had been for the entire rest of the season. They had 18 shots. Excuse me, 18, not 8 shots. 4 of them were on target, though. Compare that to Aston Villa. Aston Villa was very clinical, especially in the second half here. They ended up winning 2-0, 1 goal from Leon Bailey, another goal from Ollie Watkins. Emi Martinez, in particular, had a wonderful match, saving tons and tons of shots from Arsenal. On to the last match we're going to talk about here. In the Premier League, we had a massive blowout win, a 6-0 win for Chelsea over Everton. Everton, who is just not having a great season, not on the pitch, off the pitch. They're having the points deducted from them for all the, financial fair play breaches, all that stuff. It is not looking good for them, and to pile on the misery, they conceded 6 goals to Arsenal here. 4 of them from Cole Palmer, who is now the top scorer of the Premier League. And Cole Palmer, of course, having a wonderful past few months. Of course, who can forget his hat-trick against Manchester United? Now he's followed that up with another hat-trick here, with 3 of those goals coming in the first half. There was a little bit of a controversy at the end. Chelsea was awarded a penalty in the 64th minute, and 4 of the Chelsea players were fighting over the ball. Not a good look for Pochettino, not a good look for Chelsea overall or the players in the club. Eventually, it will be Palmer who stepped up for the penalty and scored it to win his poker. It's 4 goals. Great performance from him. Now let's take a look at the Premier League table. And as I mentioned before, Man City have basically, put their flag in the ground, solidifying their top spot here. And they didn't really do much, to be honest. Yes, they destroyed Luton Town, but you would expect them to do that regardless. But it was Arsenal and Liverpool that basically shot themselves in the foot, that it looks like they're just going to give the title to Man City. It would be almost hilarious in an ironic sense if Man City end up winning the title this season, despite not really playing all that well. Like I said, Man City top of the table on 73 points. Arsenal in second, 71 points. And then Liverpool in third, also on 71 points. But Arsenal has a much superior goal difference. And then Aston Villa, with that win, solidify their spot in fourth on 63 points. And then Tottenham, with their loss to Newcastle, are on 60 points in fifth. And then Newcastle, speaking of them, are in sixth spot on 50 points. And then Man United in seventh on 50 points as well, but with an inferior goal difference. Now let's move on to the Premier League. We're going to move on to La Liga in Spain. First match we're going to look at, we had Real Betis going up against Celta Vigo. Celta Vigo with the new manager after Rafa Benitez had been sacked. And this match was overall a pretty close match. Juan Miranda opened the score for Real Betis in the 53rd minute. And then Nabil Fekir scored a really nice goal that was initially ruled off for being offside, but upon review, the referee awarded it. Strand Larsen did grab a consolation goal for Celta Vigo in the 91st minute, but it was too little too late, and Real Betis win 2-1. On the next day, on Saturday, we had a big matchup between Atletico Madrid and Girona. And Girona, darlings of the La Liga season so far, but the wheels have kind of fallen off, as I've said before on previous episodes of this show here. They did start off playing pretty well. They actually opened the score in the 4th minute. Dovbyk, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. He opened the score to basically solidify his spot as top goal scorer of La Liga this season. Great move from Girona, the typical Girona that we've seen all throughout the season, going forward at least. But unfortunately, their defensive mistakes would come back to haunt them. And then Atletico Madrid, the press that they have, the strategy of pressing that they perfected this season really came in handy here. Both these teams absolutely went for this game. There was tons of chances going back and forth, but Atletico Madrid just had much more talent going forward. And then, like I said, their ability to press and force teams into mistakes is just immaculate. You saw the same thing against Borussia Dortmund, or at least in the first half of that Champions League quarterfinal in the first leg against Borussia Dortmund at the midweek, and we saw exact repeat of that here. Antoine Griezmann pulling the strings. He was able to score a penalty in the 34th minute, and then he played a vital role throughout the rest of Atletico Madrid's goals. Angel Correa scored a really nice header after Alvaro Morata came off the bench and had a really nice cross in, and then Antoine Griezmann scored the 3rd goal. Very nice finish from him again. I will say shout out to Alvaro Morata. He gets a lot of stick, and while he did not score in this game, I think his technical ability, his ability on the ball, his dribbling ability, is just how freely he's been playing this season has been flying under the radar. I think, in my opinion, and I think I've said this on here before, this is Alvaro Morata's best season of his career. So, moving on to the next matches, we have Mallorca going up against Real Madrid. Mallorca, the finalist in the Copa del Rey final. They unfortunately lost on penalties, but they followed that up with a respectable performance against Real Madrid. Real Madrid, obviously, they have their Champions League quarterfinal up against Man City to think about in the coming week, but they rotated their squad a little bit, not a whole lot, but they did rotate some players here, and I think we saw a bit of a sluggish performance in the first half. Mallorca had some chances. They played well, they defended well, they were solid at the back, but then Tchouaméni scored a beautiful goal. Initially it looked like a beautiful goal. Once you take a closer look, it did take a slight deflection off a defender, but Tchouaméni is a guy that has a long shot in him. He just, paid for his lottery ticket, and he won big with a really nice shot. We've seen that before on several occasions, But after that goal, then you saw a switch from Real Madrid. They had just an extra pep in their step, and then also Ancelotti made some changes. And then going forward, Real Madrid looked amazing, whether it be Valverde pushing up or Vinicius when he came off the bench, or any of the players, even Joselu, Brahim Diaz, these guys, they just had a wonderful performance. It is a little concerning, possibly, that they only won 1-0 with the amount of chances that they had, but it did also look like Real Madrid knew that their win was secure, and they didn't want to exert too much energy. Another concerning detail, I would say, is the amount of chances that Mallorca did have on the break, especially in transition. There was some chances there. Real Madrid's defense is susceptible. There are some flaws in it, which is understandable when you consider the amount of injuries that they've had. But Man City will be looking to that to see if they can exploit that at the week. Will they be able to? I don't know, because you also have to look on the other end of the pitch and just how free-flowing their attack was. Moving on to another match here involving another Champions League quarterfinalist, we have Cadiz going up against Barcelona, against a much changed Barcelona, a rotated squad after their crucial win away at PSG in the Champions League. And in preparation for the next leg, of course, they rested most of their players. And Barcelona's good form that they've been in the past, let's say, 2 months, maybe month and a half, continues here. It wasn't an immaculate performance from Barcelona, but it was still a good performance from Barcelona, despite all the changes, despite the fact that, they're probably putting much more focus on the Champions League at this point of the season. João Felix, who started in this match, was able to score the winner with a really nice bicycle kick. There's been some controversy about this. Some people saying there should have been a high boot. I will have none of that. Yes, you can call me biased because I'm a Barcelona fan and I am a fan of João Felix, but it is a bicycle kick. You can't criticize a guy for a high boot there. Not to mention, if you look at the Cadiz defenders, they weren't even trying to head the ball. Their head wasn't really in that close of a distance to João Felix's boot. Very nice goal from him, though. And then João Felix overall had a really nice game. He had a shot that unfortunately cannoned off the inside of the post after a really nice dribble. Fermin Lopez also had a shot that was cleared off the line with a really good goal clearance. Cadiz did have a few chances here and there, but the closest chances that they had were long shots from far out. And while they did force Ter Stegen into some very close saves, these chances weren't ones that were, let's say, tearing apart Barcelona's defense or anything like that. So overall, not the most smashing victory, but a very vital 3 points and, a professional performance from Barcelona. We also had a draw between Athletic Club and Villarreal. Athletic Club, the reigning champions of Spain, at least in the Cup, in the Copa del Rey. Sanset scored a really nice goal, following up his goal in the Copa del Rey final. But Dani Parejo scored a 95th minute penalty for Villarreal to tie up the match with essentially the last kick of the game. There was also a red card for Comensania from Villarreal as well, right after the break. A bit of a nippy game, not the most free-flowing match you'll see. The penalty was a little controversial as well for Villarreal, and the Athletic Club players were furious with the referee, and I gotta say I do agree with them. I don't think that should have been given as a penalty there. And Villarreal's blushes have been saved, and Athletic Club, while of course they can be disappointed that they had a draw here, especially when you look at the table, which we're going to look on in a bit, and how they're trying to fight for top 4. But of course, I don't think it's going to dampen the mood too much, considering the massive celebrations that they had last weekend. On to the last match we're going to talk about in Spain. We had Osasuna going up against Valencia. Andre Almeida scored in the 18th minute to gain a 1-0 lead for Valencia, which they would hold on to for the rest of the match. This match is not necessarily that important, but I will highlight it because there was one of the most comical moments that you'll see all weekend. Ante Budimir, the Croatian striker for Osasuna, had the chance to equal the score, and he pulled off one of the worst penalties that you will ever see. I don't know what he was doing. If you get a chance, go back and watch the highlight on YouTube. It is hilarious. I have no idea what he was doing. He completely fluffed that penalty. As I said before, let's look on to the league standings for La Liga. We have Real Madrid still top of the table 78 points. And then Barcelona has, I think, pretty much secured their position as the second highest team in the Liga table. They're in second place with 70 points. And then Girona is still third on 65 points. And then Atletico Madrid is now fairly comfortable in fourth spot on 61 points. Then Athletic Club is fifth on 57 points. Real Sociedad is sixth on 50 points. And Valencia is 7th on 47 points. Real Betis in 8th on 45 points. And then Villarreal 9th on 39 points. Now let's move on to Italy. Let's move on to Serie A. Lazio had a pretty good victory against Salernitana. They followed up their loss at the last weekend against Roma in the derby. Felipe Anderson had a pretty good game. He scored 2 goals here as they beat Salernitana 4-1. Elsewhere, we had the Turin derby. We had Torino going up against Juventus, and this game overall was very, very boring. And it finished 0-0. Wasn't really a whole lot of shots for either side. Disappointing performance from Juventus, especially when you consider the chances that Dusan Vlahovic missed. Dusan Vlahovic, who has been a pretty good player this season overall for Juventus. He fluffed his lines, unfortunately, for Juventus, and they come away with 1 point apart. There was also a 0-0 draw between Bologna and Monza, which is disappointing for Bologna as they're trying to solidify a top 4 spot and secure Champions League qualification for the first time in their history, at least in the modern Champions League format. And then we had a crazy game between Napoli and Frosinone, where Khedira, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, I believe he's a Moroccan, he was able to deny Napoli from getting the win here, scoring 2 goals as it finished in a 2-2 draw. Very disappointing performance from Napoli. They were booed off the field as they walked off, interestingly enough. We also had a crazy 3-3 draw between Sassuolo and Milan. Milan, while they are the second highest team in Serie A, any semblance of a title defense is falling apart, and I think pretty much here it's been solidified that they will not be winning the Serie A Scudetto this year, if there was any hope at all from any other fans. It was very poor defensively from Milan. They went 2-0 down 10 minutes in, and yes, they were able to claw back with a draw. Noah Okafor was able to solidify a 3-3 draw in the 84th minute. It is still very troubling when you just look at their defensive incapabilities, especially when you consider that they lost at home to Roma in the Europa League quarterfinals at the midweek as well, and they have to go away to Rome to try and reverse that result. Of course, you cannot expect the morale to be super, super high. So if I was a Milan fan right now, I would be a little worried. There was another draw between Udinese and Roma, but this game was suspended after a very, very scary moment from Ndika, where he looked to have collapsed on the field with an apparent heart injury or heart complication, and the referee decided to suspend the match, and it will be possibly resumed at a later date. Luckily, Ndika looks to be okay. They showed pictures of him in the hospital afterwards. He's conscious. He was able to smile for the picture and everything, so he looks to be okay. Of course, thoughts and prayers go with him and his family. Hopefully, he is able to have a speedy recovery and doesn't have any long-standing heart injuries. On to yet another draw in Serie A. We had Inter going up against Cagliari. Inter, basically champions-elect at this point. Marcus Thuram and Çalhanoğlu were able to get on the score sheet, but they were denied a win after an 83rd minute equalizer from Cagliari, postponing their title win to next week. And then we had another draw between Atalanta and Verona. Atalanta, who came off their aforementioned crazy and extremely impressive win over Liverpool at the Europa League, was not able to hold on to the lead here. They raced to a 2-0 lead. They had a wonderful first half. Scamacca scored yet again, but in the second half, they kind of collapsed a little bit, which I guess you can kind of say is a little expected. They're probably very fatigued from the match against Liverpool, and of course, their mind is probably all in on the second leg, not so much on the Serie A season so far at this point. Now let's look on to the league standings. Inter Milan is top of the table, 83 points. AC Milan in second on 69 points. There's a huge gap there. And in fact, next weekend we have the Milan derby coming up, and if Inter win, they will be crowned the Scudetto champions for 2024. Anyway, on third place we have Juventus, 63 points. Bologna is still in fourth on 59 points, and then Roma in fifth on 55 points, and then Atalanta in sixth, 51 points. Lazio in seventh, 49 points, and then Napoli in eighth, also tied on 49 points there. Now let's move on to the Bundesliga, and we had a great weekend here where, let's just start off with the elephant in the room. We have a new champion in Germany, Bayer Leverkusen. They have finally done it. They have pushed Bayern off the porch, but also they did it in the best way possible. Not only did they utterly smash Werder Bremen 5-0 in one of the most one-sided performances that you'll ever see, with Florian Wirtz scoring a hat-trick, Boniface scoring, just an overall 10 out of 10 performance from them. They also have been doing this all season. They are still undefeated. They've been playing some of the best football that you will ever see. Xabi Alonso came in with a football revolution at this club. All the players are playing great. Granit Xhaka, Grimaldo, Boniface, Wirtz. Every single player on this team has played a part. Borja Iglesias, Patrick Schick, all the Incapie. This is an amazing team. This is one of the best Bundesliga title-winning teams that I've ever seen, and probably in all of Bundesliga history. This was a wonderful moment for German football. Obviously, it's cool to see another team besides Bayern Munich winning, but it is even better to see a team like Bayer Leverkusen, who, they didn't get lucky or anything like that. They completely earned it. They were by far the best team in Germany. Hopefully they can keep up their unbeaten run. And also, it'd be cool to see how far they can go in their other competitions. They're in the DFB Pokal final. They are also in the Europa League still, and they have a lead over West Ham in the quarterfinals. So it remains to be seen where they will go from here. But this could go down it already is one of the most momentous seasons for any team, by far Bayer Leverkusen's best season so far, but it could get even better from this point on. Elsewhere, we had, speaking of Bayern, they were able to win on Saturday, 2-0 over Cologne. A goal from Rafael Guerreiro, another goal from Thomas Muller in the 93rd minute, just before the game finished. That delayed Bayer Leverkusen's title win until Sunday, which is ultimately, I think, probably better for Bayer Leverkusen fans, that they were able to win in their home stadium, in front of their home fans, with a win of their own, rather than, seeing Cologne somehow beat Bayern and Bayern slip up and then they win. I think it was much better. It turned out this way. Elsewhere, we also had Borussia Mönchengladbach going up against Borussia Dortmund. And this was a pretty good game, very back and forth. Sabitzer with a brace. 2 goals in the first half, one in the 22nd minute, one in the 28th minute. But Vober was able to grab a goal to have the lead in the 36th minute, and the game was pretty tight from there on. Adeyemi actually got sent off in the second half, but Borussia Dortmund was able to hold on to the lead for a vital 3 points. RB Leipzig smashed Wolfsburg 3-0. A goal from Dani Olmo, Sesko, and Openda, who's been having a wonderful season so far. Great win from Leipzig as they look to solidify a top 4 finish. Then we also had, speaking of another team in the top 4, Stuttgart with yet another smashing win, 3-0 over Eintracht Frankfurt. Guirassy scoring yet another goal. Great win for Stuttgart as they are also trying to solidify a top 4 finish themselves. As for the league table, Bayer Leverkusen, obviously top of the table, 79 points, confirmed champions. Then we have Bayern Munich in second place, 63 points. And then Stuttgart, interestingly enough, also in third spot, also on 63 points. And then RB Leipzig in fourth spot with 56 points. And then Borussia Dortmund, not in the top 4. They are fifth on 56 points. And then Eintracht Frankfurt in sixth, 42 points. It will be, now that the title race has all been wrapped up, it will be very interesting to look at the top 4 and see if Borussia Dortmund is able to leapfrog Leipzig or possibly Stuttgart. How is that going to turn out? Most likely, I think it's going to be between RB Leipzig and Dortmund, who knows, especially considering Dortmund are still in the Champions League. If they somehow, the lead is not in their favor. But if they are somehow able to reverse that fixture in the second leg against Atletico Madrid, maybe they're prioritizing the Champions League and Leipzig will finish top 4. Who knows from that point on? But that will be the race to watch out for in the Bundesliga now that the title has been all but wrapped up. Moving on to the last league that we are going to look at here, we have Ligue 1 in France. And this match week was a shortened match week. Not every team played. Not a lot to talk about here in terms of big matches. But there is one match that we're going to talk about here, and that's Lyon versus Brest. Possibly the best match of the weekend. Taking away all the context of everything, if you just look specifically at the play on the field, everything that we saw here, this probably was the best match of the weekend. Lyon winning 4-3 over Brest. We saw some crazy goals from defenders, goal from a free kick, penalty in the 90 plus 16th minute, red cards on either side, crazy stuff, fights going on in the field. And it is also interesting if you look at the narrative as well, where Lyon was at one point bottom of the league. They started off with possibly the worst start to any season that they had. I mean, this is historically the best team in France, some would say. And yet now, there's a good chance that they could qualify for the Europa League. So they've turned their season around. But Brest, on the other hand, while, yes, they are not the most well-known team in France, they are second place in Ligue 1. They are the second best team in France this year. And it was a game that really, really went back for it. Tolisso scored a really nice goal to open the score in the 18th minute. But Brest was able to equalize before grabbing the lead through a really nice free kick, only for Lacazette to score another volley to equal the score again. And then Tagliafico tied it up 3-3 with a really well put together goal. There was a huge scuffle right outside the penalty area. Tagliafico and Lys Melu, I believe that's how you pronounce it, from Brest, both got sent off. A bit of a collision there and then a bit of a fight on the field. And then Maitland-Niles won a penalty and scored it, like I said, in the 90 plus 16th minute. Englishman there, who is a former Arsenal player, scored the winner for Lyon there. Like I said, a vital 3 points. Let's move on to the table. Speaking of the points there, PSG obviously top of the table still on 63 points. Brest in second place on 53 points. Monaco in third on 52 points. Lille in fourth on 49 points. Nice in fifth on 44 points. And like I said, Lyon now move up to 7 points on 41, or seventh place on 41 points. As for the league title, it's all but guaranteed that PSG will win, probably in the next match day or the next match day after that. I would assume if they grab a victory there, they will come away with the league title. So we are come away with the business end of the season. We have the confirmed champion of the Bundesliga. Most likely we'll have the confirmed champion of France coming up pretty soon. Possibly Serie A as well, leaving Spain for Real Madrid is probably going to come up soon. Who knows? Maybe Barcelona can knock them off the porch in a miraculous comeback. Most likely, though, it will be Real Madrid leaving the Premier League, which is probably the only one that's going to go down to the final few match days. But that has been my review of the Europe's top 5 leagues this season, or this weekend. Let me know what your thoughts for this weekend. Let me know what you thought of all the crazy upsets in England. Let me know what you thought of Budimir's terrible penalty in La Liga. Let me know what you thought of all the draws that we saw in Serie A. Let me know what you thought of Bayer Leverkusen winning the Bundesliga. Great achievement there. And then let me know what you thought of that absolute banger between Lyon and Brest in France in Ligue 1. Type all your comments in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Share this video with a friend. Don't forget to follow the Football Block on social media. But anyway, guys, my name is Brandon. This has been the Football Block, and I hope you guys have a nice rest of your night.